Hello, my name is Aidan Butler, and I chose to research Blindsight. I chose to research extensively at a class, Blindsight, mainly due to the documentary featuring Dr. Ramachandran, where he researched and explained several perceptual phenomenons that are pretty much unknown to the public. And I thought Blindsight was really interesting, and I'll explain why here in a second. So pretty much an overview is Blindsight is a result from damage to the striate cortex, which is called the visual cortex, the V1 cortex. There's two main types of Blindsight. Type 1 is gives the patient the ability, or I guess it gives the patient the ability to guess aspects of a stimuli, such as location or movement of the stimuli. Specifically in the documentary, the patient in Oxford, England, that was being researched, he was able to tell on his Blindsight side of his vision. He was able to tell when the researcher moved his hand up and down what direction he moved it, and that there was movement. But he was not able to perceive what that movement was, if it was even the researcher's hand. They're able to know the location or the movement of it without the conscious awareness of the specific stimuli. So type 2 is when the patient claims there was a feeling that there was a change within their blind area, but it was not a visual perception of the exact stimuli. So the overview, I guess, or the complexity of the visual system is, again, what I found pretty interesting in this, because when people think about what they're seeing, they think it's just one straight-on answer, but really it's layers of your visual system that all contribute to one image that you see. But a lot of people think that image is just purely 2D in a sense, where they just think that it's just, I guess, one pathway that leads to the creation of the image, when in reality it's the addition of several factors. So again, that's something I found super interesting about it and why I decided to research, but I'll get into that later on the fourth slide. So potential causes. There's two main potential causes that researchers think cause Blindsight, and the first main one, and probably the most respected, and I guess not respected, but the accepted, I guess, explanation for it is the damage to the V1 cortex, which again is the visual cortex, the striate cortex, which I have right here. So the picture illustrates the pathway from the eye, from the retina, that the optic nerve takes to the LGN, and then eventually leads back to, from neural pathways back to the striate cortex, which is the V1. So a lot of people think that, a lot of researchers believe that damage to the V1 is actually what causes it, and that causes other branches of optic nerves to deliver information to the superior colliculus and other areas, which results in the Blindsight responses. So it's so that, I guess, the subtraction of the main hub, the striate cortex, results in the inability to recognize what exactly that the stimuli is, but it still results in some ability to perceive, I guess, movement and location, like I explained in the slide before. The second explanation for a potential cause is, which I found really interesting. This one is kind of intriguing. It explains that although there is damage to the striate cortex, the V1 cortex, it theorizes that there might be tiny leftover, I guess you could call them islands, of leftover functioning tissues in the V1 that remain after the damage, and they're not large enough to be able to perceive a full image, but they can give, I guess, a portion of conscious perception, or they're able to give a portion of perception in general, that being unconscious perception. So they're not able to provide the full image, but rather only a percentage or a fraction of that image, which results in the inability to specifically perceive the stimuli itself, but merely the location and movement of it. So my personal curiosity here, I'll move this real quick. I guess I'll keep it up here. My personal curiosity with the idea, I guess I'll expand on it a little bit more, is the understanding and the conceptualizing that is required for the idea. A lot of people, I explained a lot of people that think that our visual perception of something is just 2D, but it's actually layers of our visual system that add up to the image that we see with our eyes, we discussed in class about color and how it's not really in the real world, but it's merely perception of light that's reflected into our eyes. And it's really the idea of blindsight is really unexplored. The disorder of blindsight, which I liked a lot about it, is that a lot of the research that I read up on and I was discovering is very, very recent. So it's there's a lot still to be explored about the visual system and blindsight in general, which I really loved about it. Again, the third bullet point is that blindsight kind of exposes and reveals our visual system and the pure layers and the I guess the pure complexity that it really is. I mean, there's several pathways and several, I guess, things that add up to what we perceive, and not a lot of people realize those silent senses that we have that that are really required. They only are conscious of what they're paying attention to, but obviously information is coming in that's still being used, that's not that we're not aware of. So those unconscious senses are still there, but we don't realize it. And people are really only conscious of the things that we are, I guess, conscious of. So yeah, that's what I really found interesting about it. It's a pretty cool topic that I found, I guess, the most interesting in class, because it really, I think, is something that I guess exposes what we are really studying, which is the complexity of our visual system. And I thought it really just was the I guess source of everything we really striving to get at in the class. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.